Welcome back to the Table Wanderers. Dave, the Tabletop Wanderer here. And the other day, well, you might have seen from the title of the video, someone sent me a message on Instagram and they asked, let me just look over there because I got the message over there. It says, do you have a video in which you explain how you prepare for a session? I sometimes feel that my game pauses too much because I have to look up what creatures my PC are to battle against when an encounter is rolled. Do you have any suggestions as to how I can speed that part of my adventure? Well, here you go then. I responded to him on Instagram and I said more or less what I usually do for my games. And what better way than to plug Shadow of Alnor and show you more or less how I do things. Okay, don't get me wrong, I am not like the best at this thing. I've only been doing this for a little over a year now, coming up to 2 years, and I do it my way, and this is my way, like Frank. And so I thought about the whole thing, the whole process I did with it, and this is basically how I do it. Rambling on, saying the same thing over and over again, but with different words. Nice. So for Shadow of Alnor Season 2, what I did was, first off, you need a game system, right? It could be D&D, 5e, whatever you want. Delves and Dangers, love it. And for Shadow of Alnor Season 2, I picked up Streamlined Superheroes from John Fredericks at Sharp Mountain Game. Nice little game. I've talked a really lot about this game. I used it during the whole of Season 2 of Shadow of Alnor. It is simple. It is fast. It's not crunchy at all. You could just go in, roll a couple of dice, and you got your action going on straight away. So, first thing I did was, okay, I picked up the game system, this one. Secondly, because I am doing this solo, I need something to help me out with some ideas. And this is my go-to. I do have Mythic Emulator 2nd edition on PDF, but I went through it, I read through it, and it is a bit like, I'm not going to say it's complicated, it's just got a lot more stuff going on. But I did find this little gem, SoloRPG GME from Moses Bayasian. I've talked a lot about this. And this is my go-to GME, so my Game Master Emulator. This is my go-to. This little thing has everything that you need to do the GM part of your gaming. Okay? And that's basically it for this. Like I've praised this a whole lot of times. You could see it in action if you go and see Shadow of Alnor. But truth be told, I don't use this very much. Although I do like having my random stuff. I'm not much of a player that has everything set in stone. So the adventure, I know it starts here and ends there. No, I run with it. I basically, when I begin, I already have sort of a structure for the game. So what I do is I usually have the characters, okay, and especially, well, my main PC and my main villain. That's basically where I go. I don't go too much into that. I don't go beyond that. I don't have any NPCs. NPCs are all on the fly. And what I do is with story, I know that I got a sort of a broad outline of the story, right? Like for Shadow of Alnor. Spoilers if you haven't seen it yet. I knew I wanted someone from Killian's past to appear, and I wanted him to be the villain. I did not know who it was until I started rolling on some stuff, right? And I started rolling on stuff like I can't remember. I know I said it in one of the videos, what I used for it in Shadow of Alnor Season 2. I just can't remember it right now. But for the main villain, I rolled up something somewhere where he was a long-lost brother. And so in Season 1, we found out that Killian was a survivor of this big massacre that happened to his family. And in Season 2, this long-lost brother came around, and he was apart from Killian, he was the only one that survived the massacre, although Killian didn't know until that exact moment. And those were all rolled up on some tables. So what I do is game system, GME, and then I'll roll up the characters, the main characters, okay? NPCs were all done on the fly. Actually, one of the dwarf that helped Killian was actually, an idea from John Fredericks from Sharp Mountain Games. The dwarf appeared, and Killian saved the dwarf. And then John, in a comment in the video, said, "Oh, it would be nice to see the dwarf being like helping Killian." I said, "Oh, that's a good idea." So the dwarf became Killian's Q, as Q is to James Bond. Okay. Now, apart from that, what I also usually do, and this is getting to the point of the comment that the user asked, is that I basically set out all the more or less the factions and all of that. So I rolled up for the Shadow of Alnor. You can see right here, hopefully. Let me see. Okay, there's a bit of glare, but hopefully that is okay there. We'll put it over here. So, the Shadow of Alnor Season 2. I rolled up the criminals of the city. They were called the Veins. What was their purpose? What were they doing in the city? So, it was the drug, the mind bend. And I rolled up whatever. And I rolled up the main antagonist. I rolled up here the Pale Baron. But for some reason, only the pale one came out in the video. So, same thing. And that was it. But then I went and said, okay, now my factions, they need some leaders, okay? Like, there's not just like a top man and then all the underlings. No, there has to be sort of levels. And because Alnor is broken into various districts, I had some lieutenants for them. I rolled up using streamlined superheroes. I rolled up the henchmen with their abilities and their HP, and then the major henchmen, we were a bit more higher level than the henchmen, and I went on to the lieutenants, and these were the main sort of underlings of the Pale One. So we met the Vireya, who was the Silk Viper. She was in that sort of brothel sort of thing, and I rolled up all of her stuff, her abilities, her agility, her hit points, and what she usually does, what was her main job in the faction of the Veins. And then we met Gutterblight, who was the one that was talking to Bryn Amaris at the end of that episode, and he was the one that was on top of the submarine. Master Volrun, he was the one that was in the tower, and so he was the one that he was an alchemist who made the mind bend. And then Alrith Silverwood, who was the Pale One, Pale Baron, Killian's brother, who was thought to be dead, leader of the Veins, with the intention of controlling all of Alnor through the mind bend. And that's how I did it. I got onto Streamlined Superheroes, and John has this little bit here where he discusses henchmen and the enemies and sort of stuff like that. My cat's going crazy. Combat and opponents. Let's see if it's in here. Assistant. I know there's a little thing in here. This is the sample. Oh, right. Here we go. So, you get your major villains, right? He talks about your major villains, and then you get other opponents, henchmen, minor hench people, minor opponents, lions, tigers and bears, robots, kaiju, so on and so forth. And what I did was I picked this out, and as you can see, you got the henchman here with 3 HP, and that's basically all I did, 3 HP. And then you got your major henchman with 5 HP. So I went for minor opponents, and I did it a bit more, because it is just one character. Instead of giving them 10 HP, I gave him 5 HP, which there was some episodes where that was actually, a bit tough on Killian. And then, of course, we got Alrith Silverwood, which would be a major opponent right here with a lot more HP. I think I gave him the same HP as Killian at the time. But yeah, and that's how basically I do my things. I don't prepare the story, because I prefer the story to come in through the roles and see where the story takes me. But otherwise, I do prepare a little bit the beginning of the story, and I know I don't know the end. I just know why the antagonist wants to do that, what he's doing. This in, of course, a story-focused game like I did with The Shadow of Alnor. If it's just a dungeon crawl, the main goal would be getting an artifact or getting some treasure or killing a boss or a necromancer or something like that. But with a story like this for Shadow of Alnor Season 2, I wanted a bit more. There had to be a meaning for Alrith to be doing what he was doing. And that was it. He wanted to control all of Alnor and then possibly go through and control all of Darduin, which is the world that I created for my stories. And so I start with the beginning. I know what the main goal for the antagonist is, and everything in between, I have no idea. I just roll. I grab some dice and roll, and whatever comes up, comes up. As for the enemies, like the viewer who sent me the DM, this is what I do. I get more or less what the enemies that are going to appear throughout the story, and I'll do sort of tiers for them. So minor enemies, then major enemies, and then the main antagonist. It's something that I will be doing with the Outgun adventure also. I've got all that also set up a bit. But as for story-wise, yeah, just roll the dice and see where the dice takes us. That's basically what I do, and that's how I like to do it. I'm not one to have the whole story already outlined. I did that in the beginning. I remember that the Black Flame Society Season 1, I had the whole story figured out from beginning to end. But then on the next, which was, I think, after that, I did some 2d6 and stuff like that. But then when I did Season 1 of The Shadow of Alnor, it was a mix of both. I had more or less the whole story figured out, and I rolled some stuff. But for Season 2, I went mainly with the rolls, and I really did enjoy it. And I think that's a nice, fun way to do it. Get your creative juices flowing, rolling up on a table and see what comes out, and then trying to, process the whole information and make it somewhat coherent into what you are doing on the table. But yeah, that's basically how I prep for my videos, my campaigns. Pretty simple. Get a system, get a GME, and roll the basic stuff, or figure out the basic enemies until you get to the antagonist. And story-wise, I just go with the flow of the dice. That's it. Okay, I want to thank all of you for watching. We have passed 900 subscribers. We're nearly at 1K. Thank you all for that. And I want to give a big shout out to my members whose name will be appearing either this way or that way on the side somewhere. I'll throw up their names. Thank you all for being part of the members. I really do appreciate it. And don't forget, like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you all on the next one. Bye-bye.